It's Peter Mead, and welcome to the Australian Search Marketing Academy, where today we've got a very interesting topic. Today it's powerful and practical link building tactics with Dan Petrovic, who's going to share all of his amazing knowledge with us, and Julie Situ, who's going to be co-hosting with me. And so, very exciting topic. Obviously, link building being one of the bread and butter topics of SEO. So, firstly, let me introduce Dan. So, Dan, DEJAN, I hope I've pronounced that right, has been in the industry for quite a long time. Has definitely pushed the field, pushed the boundaries with his experiments and his knowledge. So welcome, Dan. It's great to have you with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be with you.
What's hot in SEO? What's really on the bleeding edge right now?
Oh, always something fun in SEO industry, isn't it? I think I think one of the most exciting things for me is not even related to search. As some of my audience in the awesome Melbourne meetup witnessed, I presented quite a few interesting facts about Google Discover, the most under the radar feature on the scene at the moment. So it's not part of search technically, but it's queryless. It's queryless results. It goes beyond voice search even, because it's anticipating what you want to know and it's giving it to you before you do the query. So Google's put data from Discover into their search console, and most recently they've announced that they're going to be putting ads in Discover. So imagine this huge content syndication platform that's using machine learning and algorithms and all the user behavior signals like Android and Chrome and Google login data and search history and location, pretty much put all that together and train Discover to serve the right type of content to the users who need it at that time. And you have a perfect ad serving platform. And that's exactly what's happening, and people are holding it in their hands. So it's just like perfection. Although it's early days, they're going to be experimenting in this and that. And I reckon this is the most exciting thing that's happened in a long time.
Wow. Well, I'll be keeping my ear to the ground, Dan, to figure out from you and people like yourself, how are we going to make advantage of this?
Yes, exploit it while it's vulnerable still.
I love that one. Let's exploit it.
It is very, very easy to make use of it. Let's put it that way.
Well, thank you so much for joining. And in a moment, we'll start with your slides. But first, I'll introduce Julie. And Julie Situ, who's been active in the Melbourne SEO community, and I've come along to lots of our Melbourne SEO meetups and been involved. But so Julie is currently the enterprise SEO person working for Country Road Group and Dover Jones. Have I said that the right way? Is the branding okay on that one, Julie?
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think that'll pass.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for joining. And yeah, it's been great to find out more about you over the years. But what's happening right now? What's hot in SEO for you now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, thanks for having me. This is super exciting.
Absolutely.
Really keen to hear what Dan has to say today. I guess one of the hottest things, something that came out of Google I/O was, Google updating their rendering engine, and I think it'd be really interesting to see JavaScript and how that's going to work. Personally, I don't have a developer background at all, and I'd really love to see the new techniques out there and how people are going to really take advantage of that. I think it'd be a really interesting space to watch. Customer experience, user experience is everything. So it'd be really cool to see how people go about it and how people take advantage of it.
Yeah, right. So today's particularly exciting. I think you'd agree with me, Julie. The link building is definitely a pretty serious piece of bread and butter for SEO people. And so we've got a bunch of questions that have been submitted prior to the webinar, but we're also getting people coming online and submitting their questions. So why don't we get started with the meat of the topic? Dan, are you ready to start giving your presentation for us?
100%. Let's get started.
Terrific.
All right. So the link building topic is a huge area, and we had many choices in terms of topic selection. But today I chose one of my favorites, and this is something that a lot of people have tried and failed, because every time you try to scale your link building efforts, you necessarily reduce the quality of output. For example, if you engage an SEO company and you say, I need 50 links a month, these guys are killing themselves to deliver the links, and the only way to deliver the numbers is to reduce the quality. And typically what you get is just a bunch of guest posts on private blog networks, right? Peter, do you like links on private blog networks?
You can I rephrase your question?
Yes.
Do links on PBNs, do they work? I think they have their uses. Do I prefer to get them for my uses? No, I prefer links that are well placed and that have relevancy, and links that send traffic. I don't usually see traffic coming from PBN links.
Yeah, that's right. So you want your links to have a purpose and to fit well within the pages where they are. So, but the problem is if you just publish great content and you don't give it a push, links may or may not happen. So I think it's your duty as a marketer to give them a bit of a nudge to push them into existence, because that's what we're here for. SEO people, we getting the best advantage out of every situation. So what's this paid organic hybrid link building? And I call it safe and scalable automated outreach. So you get a bunch of money, you throw it on various channels, PPC, you display your content, social, viral, bit of PR, and you create this cloud of activity we call multi-channel buzz, and ta-da, links happen. So in essence, you're buying impressions and clicks, and as a result, you're getting links. So that's the basic idea of what we're talking about today. So when you run a campaign like that, something like this might happen. This is just a little screenshot from the campaign that I ran a couple of years ago. So campaign starts, and then you get a little bit of traffic coming through, and during that time, you actually have some first-time referrers. So basically, the links that never brought any clicks until that point. And that, to me, is a measure of a detection. This is a way of detecting a brand new link. So during that time, we had some new referrers. Now, here's an interesting thing. When you're link building, you generally try to get your do follow links and nice anchor text and things like that. But what I got was 3 not follow links, 1 was from an image, and 4 were text links. And I had absolutely no control over what those 4 text links are or where they're coming from. And I had an absolute no choice whether those 3 no follow links are going to be no follow or do follow. They just happened. And I literally didn't ask anyone to give me a link. So these 8 links happen over the period of 30 days. You've seen the date range there. You've seen that the links happened over a scattered timeline. You've seen what they are. And so for the campaign, remember that this slide when I said I'd throw a little bit of money in that? It wasn't piles of €100 like that. It was just It was just $350 I put into ads. So effectively, I paid roughly $40 for an organic link. Now, I call this lucky because I've done these campaigns after that and they weren't as successful. And a lot of that will depend on the quality and the timeliness of your content. But that's a discussion item, I think, not the core topic of the presentation, but definitely something we can talk afterwards, talk about
I think it's
afterwards.
important. It's important, though, isn't it, Dan? But what is it you're trying to get them to link to?
It's absolutely right. Like if you create a bad piece of content or uninteresting piece of content that doesn't deliver anything new, that doesn't deliver any value, that doesn't bring any news to the table, then you can beg for the links all you like. They're just not going to happen. So this method scales up because I just spent $350 and I got 8 links in 30 days. Let's scale that 10 times. What if I put $3,500 on that? And what if I give it a quarter? How many links will I get then? Maybe not more than 8 links, because once it fizzles out, right? So you have to be careful about your spend. Maybe that's all the links you'll ever get, because all the people that were ever going to link to it were linking to it. But I think a good time period is to test it out for a month and see if it works. And if it works, run it for about 3 months. So here's the funny thing. We've got paid and organic in the same sentence. I'm paying for links, but they're organic links. What's going on, yeah? So I think that's why this is one of my favorite link earning methods. So if we have a look at a layout of such a campaign, you've got your content, and you typically promote that content through manual outreach. You do back and forth correspondence with perhaps influencers. Could be journalists or bloggers or otherwise, people in business, and you're hoping for pickups. Or you could be advertising through your own media. You can be running through social ads, or even a little bit of remarketing. So in a simplified layout, this is what my automated campaign looks like. So this one involves 0 correspondence. You just don't do any outreach by email. So we're relying on platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook to run ads. We're split testing them and taking them to our content. So we could be using more obscure platforms like Reddit, where ads are pretty cheap. We could be using content syndication platforms like Taboola, Outbrain. So there's a hybrid method of this campaign, a little bit of a configuration difference. We can combine email campaign as well. So you're running the ads, but you're also pushing a little bit through manual emailing, some campaigns, or even through customer match, which Google provides quite a nice platform for that. You can target influencers in their Gmail. So Outbrain, for those who are not familiar, is just when you finish reading a story, and at the end you get those promoted stories or sponsored news, etc. So you're basically buying a spot in there for your news story. But the purpose of this is not just to get traffic. The purpose of this is to interest others into reading it, digesting it, and linking to it if it's interesting enough. So this is the question that I get a lot. Okay, so I put $350 on it or whatever, and then nobody links to it. What do I do then? Well, like I said, you still have a little bit of an option to follow those who've clicked on it but didn't link to it with some remarketing. Just follow them around a little bit until it's right time for them to write about that story. And if after this remarketing period they don't bite and write about it, well, maybe you should consider whether your content is worthy enough or not. So another push we have through our manual emailing, and we can even send messages via social platforms directly to influencers to link to our content. So this one is a bit of an oldie, but it was quite a successful piece of content that I did specifically to make a point that this particular method works. when I was traveling into Manila to deliver a talk there. So I collected a little bit of data about what Aussies think of the Philippines, and I structured a piece of news. And I structured it in such a way that it doesn't look like a fully digested article, but it looks more like a source of news. And notice here I've got a little bit of mingling with the locals, a little bit of social influencers there, and I've got the link to the raw survey data, right? That always helps to prove that your content piece is legitimate and not made up. So when I created this piece of content, and I was very happy with it, how it was structured, and this is a big deal. The title, the image, the first sentence, breakdown in information, how you put things together, and that will decide whether you get links or not. Very big factor. So we're creating a campaign towards website clicks and conversions, naming the campaign, choosing our target demographics, and I think the most interesting feature is that we want to play around with the audience manager a little bit, particularly from within our own list. So when creating a new custom audience, you should work with your own lists, whether you use the paid databases like Meltwater, which is fairly up to date. You can purchase every journalist's email address and phone number basically, and you can easily add them to the custom audiences. That's how it looks like there, the raw data. So you can basically add that to your custom audiences in Twitter. Another thing that I looked at in this case was what are the newspapers in the country that I'm targeting for this particular content piece. So I got a list, and then I researched all the journalists who write for those magazines and newspapers. And then also, in addition to LinkedIn, I could also find who the Inquirer.net, for example, follows, and they follow all their journalists. So I could easily get a list of their journalists through there. Of course, there's advanced search queries you can run like that one there, so you can find influencers within the area. Finally, you can use good old Google SERP scraping, site:/twitter.com journalist Philippines. Very broad. If you want to be a little bit more specific, so you literally enter this in Google, site:/twitter.com Philippine Daily Inquirer, a specific newspaper. You can replace this with any paper, and then journalist. You can get to that list. So once you have that custom audience, you browse, select it, and untick the expand. You don't want to expand this campaign. You want this campaign to have as few users as possible targeted. Set your budget. It's completely up to you to test and play around with. And again, you want it to be on the lowest end of the scale, because you don't want to spend much money, and you want to target only those who you've precisely targeted in your ads. So this is what the ad looked like on Twitter. It's nice to see that the audience I targeted actually retweeted it and liked. So a little bit of a cheat here. When I ran this one, obviously I didn't get this social interaction by targeting only 800 journalists. What I did, and this is a little bit of a hack, it's a two-stage process. What I did first is I published this to millions of Filipinos. I got the social reactions, and then I targeted the journalists, because now journalists can see the engagement and interaction, and there was like huge amount of comments. Now, not all the comments were nice. Some of them were bugger off Aussies, what's your business in the Philippines, and such things. I try not to engage into too much controversy there, but I definitely got a healthy amount of engagement there.
Dan, can I just hone in on that point a little bit? So just to make sure I'm understanding this, so what you're saying is first you published the tweet, got some engagement, got people retweeting, liking, commenting, sharing, that sort of thing, and then afterwards you then used that tweet for the ad?
No, this is the ad.
Yes, that's
Yeah. So I used that
Hmm.
I used that same ad to pitch to journalists. But now when I pitched this ad
Oh,
to
okay.
journalists, they saw, ooh, it's a hot topic, right? So I've changed, I've
Yeah,
purchased
yeah.
the
I
social,
see.
I purchased the social interactions. I
Yes.
paid money for them. But I wouldn't have been able to do this, you realize, what if
Mm-hmm.
the content was bad?
Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Or I mean bad in the sense that it was uninteresting because
Okay,
people
so
wouldn't have
first,
engaged.
first you want some social proof, some social evidence
Yep.
on
Now
that, and then you can target it to to
that's
your
right.
intended audience.
That's right. Now when you pitch this, they can see that there's been a hot debate on that ad. Um, LinkedIn,
Okay.
you can run campaigns as well, although because of the price difference between LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, I caution only for certain industries. I don't think it would work everywhere. But LinkedIn really does have very nice targeting. Facebook's been a little bit difficult um, with some of their publisher targeting and workplace targeting. But
Hmm.
LinkedIn definitely has a very precise list. As you can see here, I keep drilling and drilling deeper and deeper into this, and this is basically all the parameters of my campaign.
Wow.
And on Facebook, I can do the same thing, but obviously you don't want to be targeting 35 million people. You'd deplete your
Hmm.
budget fairly quickly if you did that. So we are then drilling, browsing into our demographics, work, job titles, um, type in journalist. So we're
Hmm.
down to 800,000, right? But it's still pretty big. Um, so
Hmm.
you can actually use exclusion or narrowing of the audience, which is my favorite tactic to get to those 1,700 people I'm going to be targeting, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's exactly what I wanted. So it's in the red, but that's very good for me. I want it to be in the red. Okay. So employers. Now, remember when I scraped those newspapers and sources? I'm searching for those newspapers and putting them in there to find them as a workplace. Save and close. So all these campaigns were then delivering real-time traffic to the website.
Hmm.
So this is now kind of like set it and forget it, or a little bit of nudging manually. So let's talk about a little bit of a manual stuff that you can do. What's the best place to eat in Sydney? This is what I asked the audience for one of my customers. And I ran the survey in Australia, and I got a lot of results there, but the winner was McDonald's. So I thought
Yes.
that, yeah, I thought that's pretty funny. So I created a source of news page, and this is a big deal. So you have to have a page that looks like source of news, something that journalists and bloggers can quote. Um, and this is the principle as old as anything. So key information first, then deeper details, and then very deep information. Um, because what you want to do when you pitch your content, when an influencer lands on your content, you can't have any pop-ups and interruptions happening. You have to provide a very quick answer. You have to support very easy scanning of that page so they can pick and choose what they want to get out of it. And you have to add some trust and credibility to the piece, like providing source of your information and such. And then, of course, if they want to, you have to enable them to go in depth with their information. That's a whole new topic, but the link is at the bottom on my website where you can see detailed study and examples of how web content should be structured. So this is in practice what it looked like. I have my title, which kind of reveals the answer already. I give the answer in the title. And then I go into the key facts, and then I do the pitch for the client. Main idea, quick facts, the plug.
Dan, can I ask a quick question right there?
Yes. Yep.
Why do you prefer to give away the answer in the title rather than get them to read on? Is there some?
Yeah, because it's like sales. It's like a content is like selling. Even in when you look at the 10 results of Google's results, those 10 spots in Google are all screaming at you, click me, click me. The one that screams loudest will be clicked on.
Mm-hmm.
And people very often go to look for answers, to look for knowledge, to look for information, to be informed. And if the title gives the answer, that's promising.
Okay.
So if a journalist says, "Oh, Sydney locals prefer to eat at McDonald's," is journalist going to say, "Oh, yeah, that's cool. I know that, so I don't need to go any deeper"? No, because it gave them the answer. They're interested now, rather than saying, the clickbait stuff. We ran a survey. You won't believe what the answer was.
Yeah.
People hate that. People hate that, and especially journalists, because they are the ones creating such articles. So they're definitely not going to fall into their own trap. So if you give them the answer, I mean, don't believe Dan. Run your own tests and see which title does better. For example, for your influencers, a clickbait article title might work better. This worked better for me. So testing, A/B testing your titles is a good idea. But I found that if I give the answer in the title, that gives assurance to the one that I want to influence,
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to get clicks and traffic and this and that. I want this person to go through that link, click on it, read more, digest it, feel something about it strongly enough to go and write something more about it and link to it.
Do you think also, in my experience, what I have found is from the SERPs, the search engine result pages, is that Google, it likes sending people to results that are trusted, that it knows what's there. So it's a similar thing. Google doesn't like kind of misleading its own user base by sending people
That's
to a
right.
page
That's right. And
that's
Google's trying to be helpful, even with videos
being
that don't get
tricked.
to videos that don't get to the point within the first 30 seconds. Google within results actually sends users to the good part of the video. They actually have that in their algorithms. Yeah. They'll
Yeah.
just skip your "Hello, I'm Bob. Click below to subscribe. How was your day? Blah blah blah." Anyway, 1 minute later, it's like, "Okay, here's how to tie shoelaces." Um, so
Uh,
yeah, so that's why I do the essence in the title. Very quick facts in the
all
beginning.
the juice. I love it.
Plug. Yep, that's right. That's right. And this is nothing new. This is very old principles. Inverted pyramid. It's been done forever. That's how journalists operate. Um, so then I've got an interesting thing. I've got a contradiction. I've heard what journalists have written about. They're saying McDonald's is in deep depression, and I'm saying, well, I don't know what you're writing about, but I'm seeing that people love Macca's. What's going on? So I'm going into the deeper story. I'm providing samples and data, proof, trust, and a little bit of visual eye candy and raw data there. So you can download the entire survey in its raw form if they want to. Then site in Google, I type in site:twitter.com journalist McDonald's tips. What does that mean? It's a journalist who's written about McDonald's and welcomes news tips in their profile. Or site twitter.com business insider McDonald's works at Business Insider and has written about McDonald's, mentioned McDonald's in their tweets. All right, what do we have? This is literally the result. Hayley Peterson. Cool. Let's check it out. Nice. She prefers people to email her the tips. Okay, let's email her. So for this one, I used Crystal. Crystal knows to cater my email to write it better for her style. So the recommendation from Crystal was use data to prove a point when emailing Hayley. Write 3 sentences or less. Provide a lot of detailed information instructions. Ask them something that will require a long and thoughtful response. That's what I did. Hi, Hayley. We've just completed a study for Wimdu Australia, which focuses on eating habits of Sydney locals and found McDonald's to be the top choice by a solid margin. I provided the results and I provided the zip file with the source. So use data to prove a point, provide lots of detailed information instructions. And now ask them something that will require a long and thoughtful response. This is the risky part. We've already made a reference to your article. So I linked to her article from within here. And I said, in order to not offend her, it would be really interesting to hear your opinion whether McDonald's Australia is immune to whatever seems to be going on with the franchise. Because I know that she wrote about McDonald's being in trouble. So I'm contradicting her own point and bringing something new. It made her think. She didn't even email me back. The next morning, the article popped up, and the hook was successful. She credited the client with the research piece, and that got syndicated onto other brands from Business Insider, like Yahoo Finance, for example. So we've got McDonald's is thriving in Australia. Second paragraph, blah blah blah. Third paragraph, boom, source. I couldn't have done it any better, right? So outreach for me started before my content was finished.
Yes, but you've turned it on its head, haven't you? Because you've turned it all on its head. I mean, all those people who say, "Here's how you structure an outreach email," and it says, I've got an article for you. Will you link to me? This kind of theory
doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Yeah. So some other example. I searched what is the largest star, right? So this is a non-commercial query. You've got lots of nice resources, and a good one was on cornell.edu. Super duper authoritative site, right? So I found a scientist and I said, I love what you're doing. I'm putting something pretty cool together. I'd love to get your input on this. She got back to me with some facts. And after that, I said, thank you so much for your contribution. The piece is now live. And she was like, oh, cool. That looks awesome. Thank you so much. She was mentioned. Her heart's in it. She's embedded within the story. She mentioned me and gave me a link on. So obviously it was a pretty cool video piece we did. But we asked her for that scientific input, which both improved the credibility of our story and gave us a chance for that link. And we got a link from the Cornell EDU as a result. Similarly, I used a series of images to morph our faces of our ancestors into a modern human through a series of different evolutionary steps. And after a while, so this happened in 2014, I got an email from somebody from Stanford University asking to use the video in one of their talks at Stanford. And I said, obviously, I'd be honored if you use it. And this is the page where the video was originally published. And if you decide to include a link in your acknowledgements, right? So just a bit of a soft nudge. You don't want to be too aggressive about it. So that happened, and then 2 years later, somebody comes back to me and says, oh, we love it, and we want to present this to 3,000 people in a huge auditorium. Do you have a better source file that we could use? And I'm like, sure. Here's the link. By the way, here's my new piece of content if you nerds want to have a look at that. So
of course, we're nerds. We want to.
Yeah, that's right. So there's me in my cryogenic outfit with liquid nitrogen and type 2 superconductors and some neodymium magnets. Of course, as you do on a Tuesday morning. Levitating objects in space, and 3D printing a little hoverboard. So that actually landed me a gig. Didn't give me a link on Stanford University again, but it gave me a spot at MozCon to speak about, and I got a link from there, which I'm pretty happy about.
Mm.
So what are we talking about? Content, engagement, relationships, business. Your digital activity footprint, things that interest you, things you're engaged with. Links are a byproduct of your personal interests, of your business engagements and everything else. So one of the key aspects of link building is to understand and map the businesses and the people's relationships. Mind map everything. Brand, suppliers, office space providers, web designers, cleaning company. Maybe office space has a tenant directory. Web design has a portfolio of their clients. Cleaning company, you can give them a testimonial. Your brand could be related to other businesses, right? International and non-competing that might want to link to you. People go and speak at events, at alumni events, different fans. So obviously this is just a tiny little sample, and you could do the same thing with topics. You don't have to link build around your core topic. You could go from a core topic, like let's say you're doing accounting, that's your core topic. And then the next thing you go, one area is software, the other area is bookkeeping, third area is money management. Management is related to finances, earning, job. So you can explore and explode all your descriptions and topics, just like you're mind mapping your link opportunities. So let's assume you've done all your mind mapping, you've set up your campaigns, your content is great, you're doing a little bit of manual link building, you're doing a little bit of automated link building. The key thing for me when I was doing this is, how do I detect all these links as they happen? And I used to do this manually in Google Analytics by snapping up new referrers, and then eventually I got tired of that process, so I built a separate little subtool under algoroo.com, which is u.algoroo.com. You sign in with Google and you connect your domain with analytics. You give Algoroo access to analytics, and then it's actually able to track real-time links as they happen. So link section there can tell you top referrals and context distribution. So you'll get a graph like this that can, on top of your Google Analytics traffic and Search Console traffic, if you connect Search Console and referral traffic, you can just enable links and you can see when new links happened. So again, how do I know this? Well, Algoroo looks at all your referrers and memorizes them all in the database. So every time somebody new links to you, it'll know that it's a new link because it's never sent any traffic before. The downside of this system is that if you create if the link comes into existence, or you create a link and doesn't bring a single click, we won't see it in here. The upside of that is, if a link is created and nobody ever clicks on it, it's a pretty terrible link. And you probably shouldn't have it anyway. So this is a nice little alert system that tells you when links happened. And if you look at your Search Console traffic in the same timeline, you will be able to see if link acquisition has correlated with any increases in traffic as well. So funny story about this is that using this tool, a while back, I actually noticed a link that was sitting on my list, kind of like this list here. And I clicked on it. It looked like a bit of a longer URL. I clicked on it, and it led me to a WordPress page that I didn't have access for. Then I realized it was draft. So somebody's already drafting up a post, and they've been in a preview mode, and they've clicked on it, which has showed in my analytics, and I noticed it, and it was on my list. But I can't view the article because it's in their drafts, WordPress drafts. But that didn't stop me to go to the webmaster, to the blogger, and say, hello, I just noticed that you're writing about me, and you're linking to some of my pages. So I just thought if you might want a contribution or an image or a statement from me. So after they sobered up from being freaked out about how I knew that they're writing about me, they sort of allowed me to contribute to that. So it's crossover between reputation management, knowing when somebody's going to write about you, and proactive, like pre-content link building kind of thing. Yeah. So on this list here, we can see all the people who have linked. That's a pretty good link. HoboWeb, his blog is pretty popular actually. So he's linked to me through my name as anchor text, and he's linked to my link inversion article. This article here was just linked through anchor text with the URL itself. This website links through the brand. This one here, 404. What is going on? So maybe I can go and check that I've accidentally deleted this page because I'm missing out a nice link from Reddit, right? So this one here is a no-follow link, but when you get a no-follow link, you might go and say, why no love? What's the deal? And sometimes webmasters change it, but it's up to them because I'm earning my links. I'm not making them or paying for them. So I think we'll finish it off at this point and maybe jump into the discussion and questions. How does that sound, Peter?
Sounds terrific.
Okay,
all right.
Thank you so much, Dan, for sharing all that information. It's quite a bit there. You've delved into lots of different areas, and it's obvious that technique you've got there has been refined over time. So maybe I can start, with the first question to you, which is, what feedback signals do you use to refine that over time?
I think the biggest problem that I've had over time was that my content just wasn't interesting enough at that time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad content. It just didn't click at that moment in time. So bloggers and journalists weren't ready. So what I do instead is I try to reinvigorate that campaign with some repetition. So once you publish that piece of content, you don't just, it didn't get any links. You don't just dump it. You try again, 3 months down the track, and again, before you completely give up. If you're confident the content is good. So obviously the most important, considering this is a link building exercise, the most important exercise is to get the number of links from the kind of places that you want. And sometimes I do give up. That's the truth. Yeah, I spent $500 in a campaign. It didn't get any links. I thought it was good content. I thought it was the right time. I'm writing about gifts to give your mom on a Mother's Day, and it's the right timing, and it's just not getting any links. And then, I forget it. And then 2 years later, I look at the search console and there's a link to that page. So don't worry about it. If you don't get a link and you still have a great piece of content on your site, and it's a gift that's going to keep giving, even when you're not pushing it, somebody might, read it, appreciate it, and then link to it if they want to. Worst case scenario for you in this situation is you spend a bit of money on content development and marketing, and you ended up with a great piece of content that people might read and enjoy and find in search. So you're increasing your search queries range. You're adding to authoritativeness of your website. And as a bonus, you might earn some links. Let's call it that way.
Yeah. Okay. And your Julie, what's your take on that with the quality of content? I guess it's so important to be able to link to a good piece of content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, your links do need to bring you traffic, and you want to be proud as well of the content that you've created, whether or not you're a small business, whether or not you're a big business. You want to be creating content that is great, and whether you have a team of copywriters or PR people working with you, it's really important to have quality content. Definitely agree with that. It's not an easy thing to do as well. I think, Dan, I'm sure you've gotten used to a bit of failure as well on the way.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool. We also have a question from our good friend Corey Wolf. How is your favorite platform for cold email outreach? So you mentioned Crystal earlier. When I first heard about Crystal, I was like, this is kind of creepy. That's kind of everything in SEO, isn't it? And other digital marketing channels. Do you use BuzzSumo, or what do you like to use?
So we've used BuzzSumo. That's probably the team's preferred platform. When I do it manually.
Wow.
Yep.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, because I just did a little bit of proofreading of emails, outreach emails for a new client. We're designing an outreach campaign for them, and the emails that were sent through to me for review, they were going to be templated, plugged in, and sent out. And I've reviewed the template, and it was just not going to work, because in every email, we need something that connects with the human on the human level. Hey, Julie, I read your article on your blog about such and such topic. That really resonated with me. Do you think you made a mistake when you said that? Make you think. So if we go back to that article I sent to Haley, where I said, well, what do you think about this? You wrote that McDonald's is in trouble, and I'm finding that it's not, that it's thriving and people love it. What's with that? You can't do that in BuzzSumo or similar platforms. I mean, I did use Crystal just to help me get through to people. I don't know. Do you know Ben Grubb? He's pretty prominent in digital journalism and investigative journalism. I tried Crystal on him, and it just didn't work. He's like, he saw right through it. I've since had good interactions with him about other issues, and he loves controversies and deep investigative pieces.
So what was the response? Try harder.
No response.
Yeah. I was thinking it'd be really easy for you. It sounds like you have a lot in common, honestly.
I think the easiest targets for me, the type of, so you have a serious newspaper, and they usually have the fluffy columns, right? The lifestyle pieces, home and family and holidays and that sort of stuff. I love that stuff because it gets you a link on a good domain, and it's not scrutinized. You're not pitching a piece to a top level political correspondent. It's just not gonna fly.
So I'll feed on from that, because we had a question here, and I'll ask both of you this question, because you mentioned about Outbrain as being one of the tactics. But Wendy, Wendy here, Wendy's Way to Health is her handle. She said Outbrain, because she's saying here that it usually looks a bit spammy when she sees things on Outbrain.
It is
so
spammy.
What's your thought, Dan, and also Julie? What are your thoughts about Outbrain? Does it degrade the efforts, or is it just straight there and people click on it anyway because it's so enticing?
If I see something keeps happening, people are not gonna, like, if spam didn't work, like if the conversion rate on spam was 0%, there would be no more spam. But if the conversion rate of spam is 0.0000001%, there will be spam.
It's still a spam.
If there's any chance that spam will convert because such a low cost, it'll still happen. So same thing with Outbrain. If there's a small chance of somebody clicking on that listicle or clickbait or whatever, my favorite is like there's a catchy title and the red circle around anything. So I could put a red circle around my eye. Or an arrow, right? It's like, why is that circle there? I must click on it to find out. It's like, people are weird, So
what do you think about Brain, Julie? What's your?
First of all, I love how much as it's just As a consequence of this job, we try to really dig into the human psyche, don't we? Which is like, why are people doing this? Why are people clicking it? Look, I personally don't, not into Outbrain. I think it's spammy, and honestly, a lot of the brands that I work with also think it's spammy. So while there is obviously some kind of success people are finding with it, I think it's really important from a branding perspective on whether or not you want to do it. Like, you either want results, understand that that's the risk you're taking and that's the space you're going to play in, or you kind of just go the other way and try to do it with the good quality content.
So I'll go on to the next one. So Rebecca McNeil asked a question, and I guess this is another big topic, but just very quickly, what are some top tips for link building for small businesses? I mean, is there any reference material we can give for Rebecca, or any just maybe a very quick takeaway?
I'd love to add to this, actually. I wanted to also ask Dan, what are your favorite news sources? I think this might be really helpful for her as well. Where do you get your news? What do you find to be the easiest way to digest it? Like, I know I'll put on a podcast if I feel like I'm going to have a really long drive ahead of me. That's what I'll do. What do you do?
That's an easy answer. My news source is Google Discover, of course, and nothing else.
Yeah.
I have quit Reddit.
Wow.
I've been on Reddit for 5 years, and I found it to be an incredible time sinkhole. And I'm I think 1 year clean, and never gonna go back to that place. Dangerous for somebody with a inquisitive mind. You know, it's lots of rabbit holes in there. So Google Discover is very well trained at the moment on my phone, on my account, and it provides super fine-tuned results that are very tuned to my interests. Going to Peter's question about local link building, it's one of the easiest and one of my favorite link building styles, because it's all to do with the local community, right? If I just took my daughter to school, you know, I can sponsor a local school or a soccer club or a local event, do a bit of charity work, you know. And I prefer when I do local link building, that it's not just for links, that it's a little bit for exposure, for branding, for traffic, and I can actually help somebody do something. So engagement with the local community is one of my favorites. In fact, I just saw the principal at my daughter's school a couple of weeks back to discuss potential collaboration. I won't be telling which school she goes to, because Googlers will go and scan the link profile and think, aha, he sponsored a school just to get a link. But definitely local community engagement is my favorite, because it does something positive. You know, one of my personal, like, not necessarily for small business, one of my personal favorites was engagement with the scientific communities around the world, supporting initiatives like biodiversity, recycling, human rights, nature preservation, marine biology, astronomy, physics. One area that's really burnt right now, and SEO industry ruined it, that's this scholarships.
Oh, yeah.
If you go to any scholarship page now, it's absolutely ruined, because you'll see, like, Bob's Locksmiths, South Brisbane scholarship for cryogenics. It's what?
I got another question here. Actually, it's a tough one. Oh well, I mean, it's a bit more advanced, so maybe we'll have the quick answer, because we've only got like 5 minutes left. So if there's any, I'll just ask this one. Brody Clark, who's he's asked a question here. He has a question about link inversion. So if a scraper site that has a higher authority than your site has stole your content, then republished it, and is now getting a better link juice, a better result, how they're using the self-referencing canonicals. What I know this is getting probably quite a bit more advanced here, but do you have any sort of quick answers to this? What can we do?
Yeah, I can see the question in the comments there. So if a scraper site that has higher authority than yours, that's a bit of a it's contradictory. If it's a scraper site, it probably doesn't have the high authority. But let's assume it's like a newspaper. They just took your content and they outrank you. So by republishing it, but you had a self-referencing canonicals in the place, right? So for the listeners who don't understand what that means, basically the content that they stole verbatim with all the source code and everything, and the page is canonicalizing back to your domain. Technically, it's Google's job at that moment to give you the credit, and you appear in the results regardless of that page stealing your content. So you shouldn't overtake it in the results. I've done experiments I've shown experiments with mixed results on this, because canonical is a suggestion, not a directive. So sometimes they obey it, sometimes they don't. I just don't know. But the question is, what impact do you think that would have with respect to the theory of it anyway? It's a tricky question, but it's a nice one, because there are some suggestions that, okay, what is link inversion? So link inversion is a mechanism within Google that deals with duplicate pieces of content on the web. Let's say you've got two pieces of content. I'm going to use sticky notes. So this is the one where you published, and this is the one that just copied your content and published it side by side. So this one suddenly gets high authority in Google's eyes, and Google says, this is the canonical and you are the copy. And all the links from you now belong to them, because they need to consolidate all their link signals into a single URL, which they call the canonical URL, so their page rank can function. So this brings us to the interesting question that Brody asked about what happens when, I think the question is, what happens when the publisher copies it with canonical, and they have higher authority. According to the theory, the authority of the page that stole your content should pass or should be treated as your page. So any links pointing to that website could benefit your page. Now, the only way to prove this is to run a test. So Brody, roll up your sleeves and run a test, and then publish the results, and then we'll share it for you.
Come on, Brody, we know you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
So we've got another question from Sarah Paul. This is a really good one. So what is your opinion on the best way to approach link building on a large scale, but especially for online retailers that are really big, like Harvey Norman or Maya? I know, like from my perspective, I work really closely with the PR teams in terms of each campaign, what's going on, what can we do, how can we leverage that? What's your opinion?
I've had really good success with large-scale link building for big brands. The main problem is not in the ability to secure links, because you have a well-known brand and links tend to be fairly easy to create if the content is great. The problem is not in the ability to scale and secure links. The problem is that most of the links in most of these campaigns are going to completely wrong pages. I don't want Harvey Norman's blog post to be linked. I don't want the Maya's website to be blog post to be linked. I want the product page in the category to be linked. That is the tricky part that I'm currently solving with my team. We're running some interesting tests on scaling link building towards product and category pages. Obviously, okay, I'll give you a hint. I take a little bit of goodness that you would normally put on the blog, and I make sure it sits on the product page. If you know what I mean. So, bit of statistics, bit of news, something about that latest phone, blah blah blah. I put it on the product landing page, and I make it easy when I reference to it to get to it. Another pro tip is anchor points within a page. So you can have harveynorman.com.au/product URL hash insights. When you link to to that, it jumps directly to the linkable content. Now I'm not linking to the blog, I'm linking directly to the product page, directly to the section that needs the link. And whether somebody links hash this or hash that, it's not going to matter. The main page gets the authority.
Yeah, that's great.
That'll be $5,000. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Look, we are running out of time. In fact, we are out of time. I'll just very quickly, we had some other questions that I didn't get a chance to ask you, or we didn't get a chance to even talk about them. But so I'll just quickly mention Jake from Studio Hawk. He asked about how to apply link building at scale, which I think you've actually answered quite well during the whole webinar. And Harry from Studio Hawk, he asks, everyone talks about link acquisition for large companies, but how can small, highly niche websites acquire links without the use of guest posts? So I think what we might try and do is let's try and follow up these questions a little bit afterwards. And in the meantime, I'll just actually want to wrap up this webinar firstly by thanking you very much, Julie, for joining us, for your contribution and your time, your valuable time and your knowledge. And it's been amazing. Thank you so much. What's the best way for people to connect with you and continue the conversation?
Oh gosh, well, I'm on Twitter. Don't tweet much, and as well as Dan or you, Pete. But I am on Twitter if you want me. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So,
okay.
Yeah. Got a fairly
Terrific.
unique name, so I feel like that'll be easier.
Well, thanks again so much. Appreciate it. And Dan, thank you for your knowledge and your all of those insights and years of experience that you've put into that. I mean, I know it's a culmination of all of those efforts. So really appreciate that. And what's the best channel for people to connect with you?
Email me, dan@dejan.com.au, dan@dejan.com.au. I'm also pretty active on Twitter, so @DEJAN SEO.
Well, thanks again so much. And this has been the Australian Search Marketing Academy webinar. And thanks also so much to Semrush for doing so much for the Australian search marketing community. And they're always getting behind us and supporting us. With that, I'll say bye-bye, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.